Buffer Overflow course. In this course, Jeff and I will introduce the topic of buffer overflows, how they happen, and how attackers take advantage of them. Then we'll talk about defending against buffer overflow attacks and certain security measures you can take to protect your data.
Exactly, and I'll also guide you through several demos to help you better understand the specific things that we are going to discuss.
Buffer overflow occurs when you try to store more data than what the allocated buffer or storage area can hold. When you choose one of these locations, the new content may overwrite items in the neighboring blocks of memory. As you are aware, the control information about a data item, the value stored, will be in the area adjacent to the memory assigned to the variable. So this control information will get overwritten when large data gets overwritten in place of a smaller area. All this happens when this is allowed. Most compilers and languages have weaknesses in this area. This can be attributed primarily to two of the many reasons. First, programmers don't give much thought to handling the vulnerabilities associated with this kind of movement. And second, scripting languages do not have features to prevent this kind of overflow from happening.
The attackers are well aware of these vulnerabilities, and they have the tools available to carry out buffer overflow attacks. These attacks form a significant portion of security attacks. This is primarily because the buffer overflow vulnerabilities are common and relatively easy to exploit. Buffer overflow vulnerabilities are exploited heavily as they allow an attacker to do what he or she wants. If he or she wants to execute a piece of code on a victim's machine, but the buffer overflow vulnerabilities allow him to inject an attack code and execute it. Once code is injected, it will have the privileges of the vulnerable program. The injected attack code runs with the privileges of the vulnerable program. Buffer overflow vulnerabilities can potentially allow the attacker to add control needed to control the victim's computer.
Buffer overflow attacks have continued to be high in number for many years. They are used to snoop data, primarily through social engineering attacks. Buffer overflow vulnerabilities and attacks come in a variety of forms, which we will go into later.
Attackers try to corrupt the execution stack of a web application. Here's the trick. At the return address, they try to divert the address to code that they would want to execute. Buffer overflow vulnerabilities can be in any type of application, both legacy and on the web. They can be on servers, they can be on desktop machines. So we'll now see how the stacks and heaps are used to carry out buffer overflow attacks.